So when you're facing DUI charges in California and Ventura County specifically, one of the things we have to look at is, was the stop that the law enforcement officer used to pull you over, was the reason valid? Because if we can fight the validity of the stop and the court agrees with us, the case gets thrown out. So what we do is we look at the body camera, if the cop has one. We look at the what they call the MVARs, which is the video surveillance unit on the front of the CHP cars. And we look at whether or not what's written in the police reports actually matches what's on the video. Also, if somebody else has a passenger in the vehicle, sometimes that passenger can be used to support what the driver says and hopefully make that stop of your car invalid. If we invalidate the stop, you win the case. So one of the things I tell people when they come to me with a DUI case is, they say, I went on the internet and there's 150 reasons why the breathalyzer was invalid. And yes, they've done a lot of research on the internet. We actually look at the scientific basis for either why the breath test is valid or why the breath test might be suspect. So some of the things we look at is, number one, when the machine is tested for calibration, was the calibration within the law, the legal limits of the law? Sometimes it's not, sometimes it is. Is the machine testing too high? Is it testing too low? Most common issues with breath testing is people might have recent dental work, and believe it or not, when you drink alcohol, sometimes if you've got a hole in your mouth because you had a tooth extracted, you got a bad cavity, who knows what, there might be some alcohol left in your mouth that affects the validity of the breath test. Also, frankly, there are asthma issues, various stomach issues. All of these things can cause the breath test to be invalid. The bottom line is you don't know whether a test is valid or not because you're not an expert. So instead, if you've got an issue and you think, hey, I didn't drink that much, that result's wrong, give us a call. At Strongest Defense, we look at the entirety of the case, but the first thing we want to look at is how valid is the stop and how valid is the chemical test, breath test or otherwise. So I tell people, if you're going to be arrested, if you are arrested for a DUI offense and there's a blood test option or a breath test option, frankly, there's two choices to make. You've already made the choice, but just for future reference, with breath testing, the results can vary dramatically depending on whether there's alcohol in your esophagus or your mouth. And so when you blow out, those can be affected by various outside issues. With a blood test, they suck it out of your arm. And when they do that, what they're supposed to do is use a non-alcoholic wipe on your arm to withdraw the blood. In California, and specifically in Ventura County, the vast majority of the times that's withdrawn by a registered nurse, not by the actual police officers. In other parts of the states, the police officers do it, and they make a lot more mistakes. With a blood test versus a breath test, frankly, if your drinking stopped recently, you should take a breath test because you probably have not reached your peak blood alcohol level. If you stopped drinking more than an hour to an hour and a half ago, you should take the blood test because as you're waiting in the car, as they're driving you to the hospital and going through all the advisements with you, the blood test, your blood alcohol level will actually be going down. Frankly, with the reliability issues between a breath test and a blood tests are more reliable in general, but usually because of the gap in time between the time your car was stopped and the time the blood test was administered, we've got some more room to play. We've got some more things to fight because of that time gap. If you've watched TikTok videos, Instagram videos, Facebook people on the various parts of the country saying, don't take the breath test or don't take a chemical test, you should completely ignore what they're saying because under California law, when you sign up for a driver's license, it says you're required, not should, but required by law to give a blood sample or a breath sample when you're arrested for driving under the influence of alcohol. If you don't give a sample, the DMV only has to show that you didn't take the test after you were lawfully arrested. It doesn't matter what your alcohol level was on the test. They will take your license for at least 1 year. Unlike other circumstances where you can get a license to drive to work, or with an interlock you could drive everywhere, with a refusal you lose your license for a year. So once you're under arrest, you better give the test. If you have issues with the DUI arrest, if you have questions, if you have concerns, give us a call at Strongest Defense. Our job is to know the law. Our job is to know the latest scientific information. Our job is to help you fight this case. I like to tell my clients, you worry about life and I'll worry about your case.